Welcome to a quick tip tutorial here in After Effects, talking about just dealing with some animated text and really just setting up the scene. So this is really just a total beginner tutorial if you're just new to After Effects and you want to just learn a couple tips on how to do some professional looking text inside of After Effects. There's obviously a couple ways to set up your background. The first and most basic way is just by creating a new solid and picking any color you want as your background and adding it in, and boom, now you've got a background color that you can play with, and we can go ahead and put some text on top of it like that. Okay, so obviously this is just like if you're doing a basic maybe infographic or background or title slide, something like that, and you're going to animate the text on top of it. So this is one way to just very basically start. Another thing that you can consider is if you wanted to put this on top of something, like let's say it's a title on top of a different video that you're going to have, you can always use the shape tool and create a background just on your text. And what you're going to want to do is turn on this title action safe, and that'll kind of show you your proportions inside of the video screen. And so you can set it up so that it's nice and centered. Within your shape layer you can have a fill, you can also add a stroke. So if we wanted to have a white border, we can have something like that, or you can actually just go in and click on stroke and say that you don't want this at all. And if it's going on video overlay, we can also change the opacity of the shape layer by hitting T when the shape is selected, and then we can kind of fade that out a little bit. So if we create a new solid behind it, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. You can see that as I adjust this, it's going to fade a little bit. So pretty basic, boring stuff. Another trick that we can utilize is if we go back here and just create a solid layer and put it behind our text. One thing we could do is in our effects, there's something called the gradient ramp, and we could just drag that into our white solid. You'll notice I have this linear ramp right now, but here under the effects, if I change this to radial and I drag the Y value of the top color down and swap colors, and then if I take the end ramp and drag out the X, I can kind of create this nice vignette looking feel to it. And then you can get in here and really play around. Let's say if we want to use some different kinds of blues or other shades, now you can kind of start making a more interesting looking background, something like that. So that's a popular one that a lot of folks use, is vignetting in a way that looks cool. One final thing I'll show you is we could also, if we take this background and I'm going to put it back to a linear ramp. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start over. So we bring in a solid here. We're going to add the ramp to it and just leave it as is, and then I'm going to duplicate it. And then we're going to, under this little icon here, we'll turn objects into three-dimensional, which means we can rotate them in 3 dimensions. So I'm going to do that to these two objects. My first one I'm going to leave as is. My second layer, I'm going to hit R, and I'm going to rotate on the X, and then I'm going to position it by bringing it forward a little bit and then bringing it down, and I'm going to kind of position it in a way like that, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of lighten the colors on both of these so that we're using more of just like a lighter gray. And then I'm going to swap colors on that background there, and we might want to play with this a little bit more. Just really subtle look. What I'm trying to create here is kind of like a stage look. So notice now I've got this three-dimensional, and I can always play with my Z value to kind of make it look really smooth. So now it looks like I have a three-dimensional stage for my text. And what I could do now is I could duplicate my text, and I'm going to make that 3D as well. Drag it down, and I'm also going to rotate this so it looks like now it's casting a shadow on the ground. And I'm just going to scale this up ever so much. And let's just change the color, make it a little bit brighter. And then we can just use a simple effect, Gaussian blur. I'm just going to drag that on there, and I'm going to blur it out a little bit. So now it appears as though I've got text sitting on a stage in After Effects. So these are very beginner tutorials. If you were looking for something more advanced, I apologize. But hopefully this just helps you visualize a couple different ways that you can set up a background inside of After Effects. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe.